Hello everyone, welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. It's been a couple of weeks. Thank you so much for staying patient. I am back with our 99th installment of the series. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more to go, and then our special 100th episode anniversary of the Cleveland Sports Show will be with us. I'm your host, Darius Sethman. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. We have a lot to cover. Cavs, obviously, still in the midst of things. Now their second half of their schedule is up and ready for us to look at. Logan Purcell will join me. We'll dive deep into NBA talk. Also, Cleveland Indians are finally back. Have some spring training to discuss. We'll get you their schedule and what we can expect from the Indians heading into their spring training sessions. Additionally, we'll get you updated with what's going on in the Premier League, and I think you're going to like this week's sports fact as well. But first and foremost, it's our intro to episode 99 of the Cleveland Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Sethna of NordoniaHills.News, and the Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. Hello everyone, welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today, or wherever you are, to listen in on the Cleveland Sports Show. Logan Purcell, Nordonia freshman, is going to join us in a few minutes. But first and foremost, it's time to get you started with the sports fact of the day. And I said this was one that you're going to like because it has to deal with Babe Ruth. It's fitting that we're, now Indians are finally back in session. We're going to bring you a baseball fact with the one and only Babe Ruth. Now, on this day, today is February 26th, 2021. On this day, all the way back in 1935, rather long time ago, New York Yankees release Babe Ruth. That was Babe Ruth's final year in New York. He signed with the Boston Braves, and at this point, Ruth was in the twilight of his career, and he was not on a great team, to say the least. The 1935 Boston Braves finished with a 38-115 record. That is correct, yes, a 38-115 record for the Boston Braves in 1935. And in 1935, when Babe Ruth arrived on the scene in Boston, he played in 28 games, had 72 total at-bats for 13 runs to go along with that same number of hits, 13 hits as well. Only had 12 runs batted in with 20 walks as well. So obviously not the best year for Babe Ruth, but for his career, over 2,000 games played, over 8,000 at-bats, 2,174 runs. I mean, obviously one of the greatest baseball players to ever walk the earth. But in 1935, he headed to Boston and didn't have the best of times. Well, that concludes our segment for the sports fact of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get you updated on what's going on with the Premier League, our soccer league all the way out in England. This is basically like the NFL. If the NFL was a soccer league and it took place in England, that's the Premier League. And the standings are still extremely close. Let's get you updated and see what's going on there. Overall standings, Manchester United is in second place. Manchester City is in first place. I apologize. I see both the Manchester. So if you're in Manchester right now, it must be like being an NBA fan in Los Angeles. The two best teams, arguably in the Western Conference, both reside in LA. Same can be said here in the Premier League with Manchester City and Manchester United. First place, as I mentioned, Manchester City. 25 matches played for them, 18 wins, 5 draws, 2 losses, total of 59 points for them. Manchester United come in at second place. They also have played 25 games. They have 14 wins, 7 draws, and 4 losses for a combined 49 points. Tied with that same number of points with Manchester United is Leicester City. Leicester come in with 15 wins, 4 draws, and 6 losses for a total of 49 points. West Ham come in at 4th place with 25 matches played, 13 wins, 6 draws, 6 losses for 45 points. And 5th place is Chelsea. Chelsea with 12 wins, 7 draws, 6 losses for a combined 43 points. In 6th and 7th place, we have Liverpool coming in at 6 with 40 points. Everton with that same number of points come in at 7th place. Everton with a 12-4-8 record, 12 wins, 4 draws, 8 losses. Overall stats and what's going on in the Premier League on that side of things, Mohamed Salah still leads the league in goals. The Liverpool player with 17 goals on the season so far. If he keeps up the pace, he'll probably be the first guy in the Premier League this year to get 20 goals. Bruno Fernandez of Manchester United has been helping his squad win with 15 goals on the season so far. Dominic Calvert-Lewin of Everton with 13 goals, and that is tied for 3rd place. Other individuals with 13 goals tying for 3rd place in the Premier League so far are Harry Kane of Tottenham Hotspur, Patrick Bamford of Leeds United, and then Son Heung-min of Tottenham Hotspur. Harry Kane's teammate also comes in with 13 goals. So not much has changed in terms of top goal scorers in the Premier League, but assists have changed a little bit here, so we'll get you caught up with what's going on there. Harry Kane still has the same number of assists as he has had these last few weeks. Kane with 11 assists on the year so far. That is still that's still the best in the Premier League. 11 assists. Top leader in assists is Harry Kane of Tottenham. Bruno Fernandez, second on goal scoring, but also tied for second in assists. Fernandez with 10 assists on the season. Also tied for second is Jack Grealish and Kevin De Bruyne of Manchester City, each of those players also with 10 assists. In tying for 3rd place with 6 assists include Aaron Cresswell, Lucas Digne, Marcus Rashford, and Son Heung-min. And overall, let's get you updated with the matches taking place this weekend. Tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. is when the party starts in the Premier League. Manchester City going up against West Ham. West Brom going up against Brighton. Tomorrow at 12:30, Leeds United going up against Aston Villa. Newcastle facing off against the Wolves tomorrow at 3. Crystal Palace taking on Fulham on Sunday at 7 a.m. Leicester City will be taking on Arsenal at that same time. Tottenham will be going up against Burnley at 9 a.m. on Sunday. Chelsea facing off against Manchester United at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday. And the final game this Sunday will be at 2:15 p.m. with Sheffield United going up against Liverpool. We do have one game this week on Monday in terms of weekend games. Everton will be taking on Southampton on Monday, March 1st to kick off what should hopefully be a great month of March in the sports world for us. 3 p.m., Everton taking on Southampton. Well, fans, that concludes our Premier League talk of the Cleveland Sports Show. Now it's time to get into Cleveland sports. Cavs, Indians, Logan Purcell is going to join me right now, and we're going to break it all down. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Nordonia freshman Logan Purcell joining me. Logan, first and foremost, thank you so much for being with me again. It's always awesome to have someone to discuss these great topics with. How have you been doing?
I'm doing all right. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. Thankfully the Cavs have won their last 2 games after a horrid stretch of losing so many. So I guess I feel better after that. Let's get into the Cavs and some NBA talk, Logan, because we did miss last week, and the Cavs have had a lot of games, so we're not going to dissect every game. But I do want to get your thoughts on how the Cavs ended that West Coast trip, and it was not pretty, Logan. The last time we talked, the Cavs lost to the Trailblazers in Portland by 19 points, but the bleeding didn't stop for the Cavs. They then headed to California. They first were in LA with a matchup against the Clippers, and that wasn't any better. Without Kawhi Leonard and without Paul George, the Cavs still lost by double digits to Los Angeles, a 17-point loss this past Valentine's Day. Cavaliers then headed north in Northern California in the Bay Area with the matchup against the Warriors, and that was not pretty either. 129-98 was the final score in that one. Steph Curry put on a show in that Monday night matchup. Cavs then returned home, had a nice 4 days off, and returned home at the Q for a matchup with, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse now, for a matchup with the Denver Nuggets, Logan, and this was the Jamal Murray show. I mean, he was sensational. 50 points in 38 minutes to go along with 6 rebounds and 2 assists. I mean, what can you say? Cavs then lost again to the Thunder this past Sunday, Logan, 117-101. I was very surprised by that loss. And then we're going to talk about their wins, their last couple of wins here in a second. But first about that West Coast trip, Logan. What did you see, and how do you feel of how the Cavs ended that West Coast road trip? Because they had 5 games on the West Coast, 5 losses, 0-5 on that West Coast trip. It was just atrocious. So what did you see? Anything positive that you can take from that West Coast trip? And obviously, what are your criticisms of that West Coast trip in general?
Well, I will start with my one really big positive that I have that I think is tremendous for the Cavs and how they've played so far, and that's Jared Allen.
Yeah.
Despite the 4 losses that Cleveland had throughout this entire trip, I think he had a tremendous series on that West Coast. I think he had a great few games. Averaging, I believe close to 20 a game alongside 15 rebounds. I think he had a great series. But in that same token. Probably the biggest issue, if you look at the box scores and numbers and things like that, which clearly don't tell everything, but they are a huge telltale sign of what happened. And to me, it is the fact that this team has no guard defenders. You go down the board. You start with Denver, right? You said Jamal Murray show. Dude had 50.
Yeah, he was getting anywhere he wanted. Yeah, that was
50. And then you go to the LA Clippers. Lou Williams, a tremendous player. He had 30 points.
Mm-hmm.
30 points. I mean, this team, Isaac Okoro, was drafted to be a defender, and I understand that these teams that they've played have had a lot of firepower. But to me, he should be guarding the best player on the floor offensively at all times. If he's as good of a defender as people say he is. To me, at this point, I'm completely on the side of he might be one of the worst picks that the Cavs could have made.
Do you think
we've seen guys drafted later than him play so much better?
Who's that guy you're talking about, Logan? Just want to clarify that.
Isaac Okoro is the guy that I'm disappointed in, is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, and was there another pick that you think the Cavs could have been better with? I heard the Okoro part. I just wanted to clarify. Was there someone you wanted instead of Okoro?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think a guy like Obi Toppin, despite the fact that he's had his own struggles in New York, I think that the Cavs could have used that increase in size and length. And I just feel like that would have been a much better pick, even if you want to throw out a name like Tyrese Halliburton, who's had a tremendous rookie season.
Yeah.
I just think that Okoro really just wasn't the pick here.
Yeah, I would have loved to see Tyrese Halliburton. You've got that backup point guard, just another ball handler, because I feel like Cavs in terms of forwards, you have Nance. Somehow Kevin Love is still in the picture. I really don't understand why he has not been traded yet. But, you have big guys like Nance, like McGee. We'll see how this continues to go. But, Logan, let's get into the Cavs' recent home stretch here. So we talked about that Jamal Murray 50 piece. And, when you talk about the 50 and Nuggets, you usually think about that 50-piece McNuggets that you get at McDonald's, but that was not the case last Friday when Jamal Murray dropped 50 on the Cavs. Do you think it was bad defense from the Cavs, Logan, or is Jamal Murray just that good?
I think it's a mix of both. I mean, if you want to talk about, a 30-point game, a guy can be just hot,
Right.
A guy can be just hot, or it can be just bad defense. When a guy drops 50 on 21 of 25 shooting,
yeah, it was very efficient.
8 of 10 from three-point range, it's both. I mean, because let me tell you, you could be wide open, and, you might not shoot 21 or 25 from anywhere wide open because, you just might not be that hot. This guy just had an insanely hot night, and the Cavs played poor defense the whole game.
Yeah.
The whole game. They just could not get a hand on this guy.
And I want to move on, Logan, to the game on Sunday as well. You brought up some great points about Jamal Murray. I really think the Nuggets are really starting to show who they are as a franchise and a team this year. But Thunder, this is a team where I don't see firepower at all. If I look at a team I don't know if is really going to be competing that much in the Western Conference, it would have to be Oklahoma City. But they showed that they're still going to play. And it really showed how, they're not afraid of their competition, even without Chris Paul. Chris Paul is gone now. They had that same mentality last year of, it doesn't matter what, how do I put this? It doesn't matter who we're up against. We're still going to play Thunder basketball. We're still going to represent the city of Oklahoma City the best way we possibly can. And that's been the mindset these last couple of years, and especially when Chris Paul came to the picture. But now that he's gone, Logan, I'm seeing that mindset carry on into this season as well. The Thunder are 12-18, obviously 6 games below 500 in that game. That was their 12th win of the season. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander really put up a great performance against the Cavs, 31 points in 36 minutes. So you give credit to the Thunder, Al Horford in that game, 16 points in 28 minutes, still a leader, still a guy who you can count on night in, night out. But I look at the Cavs, and I think about this result, and I think, really? 117-101. I understand that you have come off a long losing streak, but this is a team that I think the Cavs, if they weren't competitive with, should have blown them out. I think the Cavs have much more talent than the Oklahoma City Thunder. Think of Sexton. Think of Garland. Think of the guys they have. I think the Cavaliers, with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland alone in the backcourt, should have been able to handle the Oklahoma City Thunder. But that was not the case. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was getting anywhere he wanted, just like Jamal Murray was. So what are your takeaways from this game, Logan? Because to me, it just seemed like the Cavs did not bring the competition. They played down to the competition, I think, in this loss against Oklahoma City.
Yeah. The few takeaways that I have is, first of all, I'm going to react to your take on the whole situation, and I think you're downplaying Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's ability, in my opinion. I think right now, in my belief, you've got guys like Devin Booker up there as well, don't get me wrong, but he's probably top of my list on all-star snubs this year.
Really?
He's averaging 23 points a game, 51% from the field, over 40% from three-point range. He's playing just as well as almost anybody in that Western Conference. So to me, he's easily top of the list with all-star snubs, on my list at least. And then the issue that I have, right, is if you look at the top of the Cavs box score, you think of Allen, Garland, Sexton, those guys. 27 for Sexton, 26 for Allen, and 21 for Garland. Oh, and Jared Allen added 17 rebounds as well. Right. It's not like these guys didn't do anything. It's the bench. The bench combined total for 9 points for the Cavs. Mm-hmm. 9 points. Yeah. That is absolutely ridiculous. That is pathetic. To be paying guys to average 9 points. I could go in the NBA and average over 9 points a game if I was given the minutes. Come on. That's just ridiculous to me. And ridiculous.
Yeah, Cedi Osman, Logan, only with 6 points in 34 minutes. I don't know what's going on with Cedi Osman right now, but he really has been underperforming so far this season. Damien Dotson, this is a guy who's got signed a multi-year contract, 15 minutes, 0 points. And we know Damien Dotson is he's a guy who's a shooter. That's what he was in New York. He was a guy who, if he wasn't shooting, he was putting the ball on the deck and going to the hole. Needless to say, he was a scorer. So, I don't really see how this is working. And you're absolutely right, Logan. Sexton and Garland showed up, but it was that bench that didn't, that decided not to show up for whatever reason. I wanted to get back to you on that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comment you made, Logan, because, he certainly is a great young player. You're right, I was downplaying him because, after he got traded to the Thunder and Chris Paul left, I figured, Oklahoma City's not going to make that big of a run this season. But, they're still hanging in there. They were 12. That was their 12th win they got against the Cavs last Sunday. But, Trae Young also and Domantas Sabonis of the Pacers got snubbed for this year's All-Star. Do you think so? You obviously don't think that's a bigger deal, because I feel like Trae Young, is starting to help his team win a little bit more, and it's showing in their record. So do you really think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a bigger snub than like someone like Trae Young or Domantas Sabonis, or even Tobias Harris, even to the Sixers?
I believe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the biggest snub in the Western Conference.
Okay.
In Eastern Conference, it's a completely other story. I mean, you've got, like we've talked about so many times, it used to be everybody wanted to go to the West. Everybody wanted to go play with the Lakers and the Clippers and those kinds of big market teams. Everybody's in the East now. The East is top heavy. I mean, your starting forwards right now in the Eastern Conference are Durant, Giannis, and Embiid. Does it get any better?
Yeah. I mean,
does it get any better than that? It can't. So to me, I mean, Trae Young is really hard to put out of there. But I mean, you're talking about, and the difference is between a guy like Jaylen Brown, who to me has had an absolutely tremendous step up of a season.
Yes.
Minus Jason Tatum for like 3 weeks of the season. But you're talking about the difference of Jason Tatum and Trae Young versus Jaylen Brown and Trae Young versus the difference of, a Devin Booker and a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Right.
The gap is just bigger on both sides. So to me, I believe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the biggest difference in the West. Whereas in the East, it's Trae Young. I'm not a huge Sabonis person.
Yeah, neither am I.
He's had a great year, and they're having a great year as well. Very surprising, but to me, I'm just not a huge fan of him.
Yeah.
To me, it's got to be more about winning, and he doesn't. To me, I'm a big guy about leading. If you can lead your team vocally, physically, by everything, you've got my vote. But to me, Trae Young just does that better than Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, and it's really going to be a lot of fun on March 7th, All-Star Weekend. We'll talk about that in a future episode, Logan, about the All-Star Weekend. Let's get back into the Cavs schedule real quick. We've been harping on them so much about the losses, but they actually won 2 games this week as well against Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. Both were at home. Atlanta came to town this past Tuesday night, Logan, and I thought, honestly, 2 minutes left in the game, I thought Hawks were going to win. It was a close one, but I just didn't think that Trae Young and company would blow it the way they did, to be quite honest with you. But give credit to the Cavs. They stepped up when it counted most. Colin Sexton finished with 29 points. Darius Garland, 17 points in 43 minutes to go along with 8 assists. Those 8 assists led the Cavs in assists that night. Dean Wade, 5 points in 21 minutes. Dean Wade actually got the start on Wednesday against Houston. We'll talk about that Houston game in a bit. But yeah, Cedi Osman, 11 points in 20 minutes, still can be better. But it's about Lamar Stevens, Logan. This is a guy from Penn State who played 4 years at Penn State, first year in the NBA, has been a role player all season long for the Cavs. Had the dunk of the night, and it was the dunk that put the Cavs up by 1. The Cavs would keep that 1-point lead and defeat Atlanta 112-111. So, seeing that game, Logan, and seeing how it played out and how the Hawks basically played no defense on that final play to give Lamar Stevens that dunk, what did the Hawks blow this to you, or did the Cavs show grit and come back? Which one more was it?
I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, when you talk about a loss, a very tight loss at that, I don't think you can simply point to a team and be like, y'all didn't show enough effort.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they were winning in this game. They had control of the game the entire game.
Yeah, Atlanta was winning for most of this game.
So you got to give them credit and tell them, they don't have effort.
Right, yeah.
They were winning the entire game.
Yeah.
Against the Cavs team that is no joke despite their pretty ridiculous record.
Right.
But at the same time, you got to give Cavs credit, where it's due. Y'all came back, you won the game on a pretty ridiculous play, but you won the game, and a win is a win. To me, you can break it down all you want, but at the end of the day, it's not going to go in as a 1-point lead or a win. It's going to go in as a W.
Right.
It's going to add 1 to that the win column. So to me, it's not as much the separation that matters. It's the wins and losses at the end of the day. But probably, again, I'm going to mention this just to simply add on to my point earlier about the guard help defensively. The two main guards, I should say, in Atlanta are Trae Young and Kevin Huerter.
Yeah.
Combined for 50.
Yep.
Of 111 points. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
This is getting out of hand. I'm not saying trade Garland, trade Sexton. They need to do something, though, because you can make up every excuse in the book you want. They don't have the coaching staff. They don't have, the wing help. They need to get some defensive guards now. Yeah. Otherwise, they won't even compete in the Eastern Conference because of the stacked East. You even go to the first round and play Brooklyn, Kyrie's going to average 40.
Yeah.
He will average 40 in that series.
But do you think, Logan, that Matthew Dellavedova coming back is going to help that problem? Because I was actually at the game on Wednesday against Houston, and Dellavedova was back talking with guys on the bench. So do you think Dellavedova is going to help in terms of being that defensive guard? Because we know what he can do.
Yeah, I think it'll be not only a help defensively, but I think it'll also be a help from a effort aspect and an effort standpoint, because we know how this guy is not just a defensive superstar, but he's also a very talented guy when it just comes to getting on the ground and grit.
Right.
Getting to the ball. If it's on the ground, Delly's going for it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think definitely he'll be a great locker room presence coming back.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to see Delly back with the Cavs. Let's talk about their most recent game. Logan just told you I went to this game. Rockets were in town to play the Cavs, and Cavs were this was a back and forth game. Cavs really took over, however, in the fourth quarter, outscoring Houston by 8. The Cavs also outscored Houston 34-24 alone in the third quarter. Let's check out the stats for this one. 10 points for Isaac Okoro, but once again, it was Colin Sexton, who did honestly had an off night to me, Logan, but still finished with 23 points, 39 minutes. But it was the Jared Allen show. He was the leading scorer in this game for Cleveland, 26 points, 18 rebounds, Logan, in 37 minutes. He actually had, I don't know if you saw the highlight, but he basically turned into Kevin Durant and went all the way down the paint and flushed a dunk down with one hand. And it was an amazing performance from Jared Allen to propel the Cavs to victory. Rockets were without their star forward in Christian Wood, but Victor Oladipo and John Wall combined for 37 points. It just wasn't a great showing by the Rockets. However, I think in this win, Logan, I'm looking more on what the Cavs did and how Darius Garland played, because Garland has been playing well these last few games. Didn't have a great game on Wednesday, but he did have a double-double with 11 points and 10 assists. He's been leading the Cavs in assists their last few games here. And what did you see, Logan, in this win against Houston? Because we know that the Rockets have taken a little bit of they're having an identity change right now. They're not going to be shooting 53s a game. So what did you see from this Cavs-Rockets matchup that impressed you or disappointed you?
So one of the biggest things that impressed me, and I called it, I'll tell you until Drummond's gone, but I called it. Jared Allen is coming.
Yeah.
I think Cavs made the right decision, as I told you they would, and they should. Get rid of Drummond. Keep your young talent. This guy is going to be a superstar to come, if he isn't already going to be a superstar. 26 points, 18 rebounds, as you mentioned, on 10 of 11 shooting. Fantastic performance from Jared Allen.
Yeah.
So from a individual perspective and as a team perspective, I think they had a great performance. But I did want to touch on the Darius Garland game. You talked about how he was, he had a double-double, pretty solid game, despite his inability to shoot the ball, shooting only 4 of 14. But you forgot to mention his near triple-double. Only 2 turnovers short of 10. And as the number one guard, I understand you're young. You've got to take over the guard job. But 8 turnovers is kind of excessive, no?
I mean, yeah, but he only had 4 rebounds as well, and that's something that I've been frustrated with as well, Logan. In the games I've been watching, I've been seeing Garland and Sexton, dribbling around, thinking, they're trying to be like Kyrie Irving or something, and they hold the ball for so long, and then they'll give it to a player, and that player will have to just chuck it up with, 1 or 2 seconds left on the shot clock That's not going to get it done, and if JB Bickerstaff needs to correct that, I would think.
Yeah, I entirely agree. But besides, honestly, those 8 turnovers from that one player, that was a pretty great performance all around, despite Colin Sexton, like you said, not having a great game. He still put up 23 points for him.
Yeah.
Dylan Wim, the bench, shooting 4 of 4 from three-point land. Kind of pretty solid performance from there. So, I got to give a lot of credit. The bench played a little bit better. They played mediocre. They played tolerable.
Yeah.
So it's better than they played in the entire West Coast strip. So I guess it's an upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, upcoming schedule for the Cavs, ladies and gentlemen. Cavs have a quick 2-game road trip tomorrow at 7 p.m. They'll be in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center. 76ers are looking great. They just defeated the Mavericks last night. They're on a roll. First place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 22-11. Cavs will then head to Houston and play the Rockets once again. So Houston and Cleveland will have a good taste of each other, maybe know some schemes of what will be going on since they're playing less than a week apart. Cavs, after that game in Houston against the Rockets, will return home for a game against the Indiana Pacers before heading out to New Orleans. That game in New Orleans will be March 12th, their first game after the All-Star break against the Pelicans. Before the All-Star break, Logan, Cavs have 3 more games against Philly, Houston, and then back home against the Pacers. What are you looking for in these next few games? Because to me, I look at all 3 of these opponents, and I see them as playoff teams. I certainly see the Pacers making some noise in the playoffs. Sixers definitely going to be in the playoffs. And then the Rockets, I think, can make some noise if their team is healthy. So what do you want to see from the Cavs as they head into the All-Star break?
Unfortunately, I can't really say that I'm really looking for any team accolades, unfortunately, as past couple weeks, it's been very, all right, let's try to get every win that we can, scrape them together, maybe we put together a run, maybe get to the playoffs, make some noise, right? I do not see this Cavs team as a playoff team, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't either.
They've played mediocre. The East is too good.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be kind of an embarrassment, and it would hurt them even more to make the playoffs than it would to miss. They give them a chance at a pick.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop me from looking more towards, individual performances. I'm looking for Darius Garland and Sexton both, mostly Garland, to cut down the turnover numbers.
Yes.
I'd like to see them under, 2 or 3 a game. And I know that sounds, kind of low, but that's kind of where it needs to be for this team to take that next step. But I'm also looking for Jared Allen to see how well he plays and continues this run, because I want to see the biggest thing in superstars and young guys that we see nowadays is consistency and a lack thereof.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how consistent he ends up being and if he can continue his run, as well as the guards defensively and offensively staying efficient.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting next couple of games for the Cavs. Especially these next 2 on the road. We'll see how they handle the pressure of being able to compete with those quality teams. Let's get into the standings real quick here. So, Logan, Cavs, as we mentioned, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team either. 14th place out of 15th in the Eastern Conference. 12 wins, 21 losses. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. They're only, if we look at their away record, they're only 3-12. So they only have 3 wins on the road right now. So not doing really well on the road whatsoever. But there's one team that I also want to talk about, Logan, in the Eastern Conference still, that really has been getting some media attention this week. It's not the Brooklyn Nets. It's the Boston Celtics, Logan. I've been hearing a lot of noise, and it all started, I've been raising some questions about the Celtics all year. I thought last year their big man problem really hurt them down the stretch in the playoffs. Bam Adebayo had his way last year in the bubble. Now this year with Tristan Thompson being there, it's not as glaring, but now you don't have a great deal of shooting, especially with Marcus Smart out. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are basically carrying this team. They're 15-17 right now. Logan, they're 3-7 in their last 10. And to me, I'm very frustrated in seeing what I am seeing from this Celtic team. It's great to see that Jaylen Brown's finally an all-star. Tatum we knew was going to be an all-star. I mean, this guy reminds me of Kobe Bryant in so many ways. But I just look at, the big man position still. Daniel Tice is not a center to me. He's more of a forward. And I love what I'm seeing from Robert Williams. I don't understand what the situation is with Taco Fall, Logan. I know you're a big Celtics fan, and I know you probably know a little bit more. But just in general, this should not be a 15-17 team to me, Logan. This is a team who, after 32 games, should probably be at the worst 20-12. They're 9th place in the East right now, and they are. They should definitely be a top 5 team right now because the Pacers are the 4th seed and they're 15-15 at 500. There's no reason for the Celtics not to be at least the 4th seed in the East right now. So, and Brad Stevens, a lot of people are saying is, his job might be on the line, and Danny Ainge has publicly come out in Boston, has been talking about how the roster is not as good, and he knows that. So, Logan, to me, and we're talking, Andre Drummond looks like he is on the market. So that might possibly help, but what are you seeing from the Celtics right now that is just making them such a mediocre team?
Well, before I answer that question, I'm going to break down what I don't see and what I've heard about the Celtics and what's hurting them and what people believe. Right, a lot of people, as you mentioned, believe it's a roster issue, and I completely understand. You always, whenever a team is struggling, you got to consider that factor at all times, right?
Right.
But let's break this down by a team. What team that you know of has 3 guys that can be and relatively are elite scorers, and they have a defensive all-star? Not many.
Right.
That you can name.
Right.
You've got Jason Tatum, who's an elite scorer. You mentioned Kobe already, so don't even go there with me.
Yeah.
You got Jaylen Brown, who's played tremendous, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about all-stars. Kemba Walker, who's had a rough patch. But, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt coming off of a pretty big injury.
Yeah.
He just didn't seem 100% in the bubble last year, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him till July, of course, because that's when it matters. And you've got an elite defender who, like you said, Marcus Smart, who hasn't been able to play the past couple weeks, will be coming back soon, I hope.
Yes, yeah, that's going to be a big key. But I think the bench is still a problem. Even with Smart back, the bench is still thin to me, Logan.
I agree, but I don't. From that perspective, I think it's a matter of developing guys. Peyton Pritchard has had a relatively impressive season for a late first-round pick guy. He's had an inconsistent yet all right year. I think they need to make one move, just one small move, to get a guy like John Collins. And John Collins has had a great year, but they need some size in there. They need a big man that can defend and get rebounds. I think they got to move a guy like Tristan Thompson and. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of picks to build up anymore because they moved them all.
Right.
But if they were to find a way to get rid of a guy like Thompson, and I hate to say it, but maybe move a guy like Kemba Walker. And I know that sounds crazy, and I'm talking about giving them the benefit of the doubt, but to get an elite player back, you need to move elite players. So maybe you're to move Kemba Walker and a couple picks, or Tristan Thompson and a couple picks, and get a guy like Collins back. But I believe they need to make one move. I don't think this team is very far off. I think it's pretty ridiculous to think that one of the greatest coaches in the NBA right now, Brad Stevens' job is on the line after one season. I mean, this guy has brought his team to the Eastern Conference Finals and been in contention for how many years straight?
Right, yeah. Exactly, yeah.
With all the different people that have been there. It's not like he's had the same team.
It's more on, yeah. I was just going to say it's more on Danny Ainge than it is on Brad Stevens at this point. I think it's more on Danny Ainge, the blame.
I entirely agree. I think Danny Ainge is a bit scared to pull the trigger on some big time moves that he could have made. You mentioned Andre Drummond. I just don't think that's the move for the Celtics at this time. I think that a guy like John Collins would make a little bit more sense. They do have that TPE, which is the trade player exception, which is $28.5 million, which they can do anything with.
Right.
But I've heard a lot of people also tinkering with the fact that maybe they should just blow it up. Blow it up and build around Tatum and Brown. You've got $28.5 million in the offseason to play around with. You can make some moves and get some picks. They've got a lot of things on the table right now, but I think Danny Ainge needs to make a decision at some point next week.
Well, I don't know if, you mentioned blowing it up, Logan. I definitely see the logic behind that. But at this point, I mean, Tatum and Brown are young, and they look like they're going to just keep getting better. The last thing you want is, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just completely killing it, but the rest of the team around them is mediocre at best, because then eventually they're going to get fed up and they're going to want out. So how do you, do you think that rebuilding should be still be considered in that case for the Celtics?
Well, at the end of the day, the NBA is about risk, and you got to risk it for the biscuit. I hate to say it, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
To win championships, you got to be willing to make moves. You just got to be willing to make moves. The Cavs wanted to rebuild back in the day with LeBron. He left, he came back, and they won a championship because of the moves that they had made. So to me, it's a matter of just making the right moves, knowing when to make them, and making the right moves is pretty much it. Though I think they've got to make a decision. Like I said, they can't sit on it like they have been. It's either all in or all out.
Yeah.
That's how the NBA is. You can't be half in, half out. No team has ever made it very far doing that.
Do you think this last kind of topic I want to talk about with the Celtics, you were mentioning Kemba Walker, possibly moving him. I personally would love to see Marcus Smart come off the bench because I just think that he's a better bench player. I think he can really bring that energy the Celtics would need, in the middle of a game rather than to start the game. And so I wouldn't want him to be the primary ball handler, because if I'm a Celtics fan, I want Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown working off the ball. I don't want them, bringing it up so much and doing so much handling, because I want them to score. So what are your thoughts on how important is Kemba Walker to this Celtics team going forward?
Well, I agree and I disagree with you there. I think Kemba Walker is an elite player, but he's been inconsistent as of recent. And who is to say that, a forward can't bring up the ball and still score the ball?
Yeah, I'm not.
We've seen LeBron for his entire career, and of course, I'm not comparing LeBron James to Jason Tatum at all.
Right.
But Jason Tatum, just like Kobe, is one of the best one-on-one offensive players we have in the league right now. So to me, it doesn't even, if he's as great of a scorer as everyone talks him up to be, which I believe he is, he should have no issue scoring the ball, whether he's on ball, off ball. That's what makes guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving so great, is they're elite catch-and-shoot guys. They can come off screens and shoot the ball, and they can just take you off the dribble and blow by you like a flash.
Yeah.
So I think that it'll force him to kind of add different dimensions to his game and not just be one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But I don't think Kemba Walker, with the way he's played recently, is much a factor at all.
Right. Do you think that he'll regain his form eventually this season?
I think it'll be kind of like the Gordon Hayward situation, unfortunately. I know it's not the same injury, but Kemba Walker was dealing with his for a lot longer than Hayward dealt with his.
Yeah.
It was nagging him. Hayward's never nagged. When he got hurt, he was done.
Right.
He was out. Kemba Walker, you could tell, at times, if you watch the highlights back from, Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year, hitting shots at the end of the game, he would limp back.
Yeah.
He just was not up.
Yeah.
And he dealt with that. He fought through it, and I think that's going to come back to bite him. I think, he's never going to be the same until he's put in a different situation where he's going to thrive and be that guy, because, some guys just have to be on their team.
Right.
Guys like Jason Tatum even, when it's never really been his team. He's always been with someone else, but he's performed.
Exactly, yeah.
But back with, Kemba's never played like his Charlotte form back when, he played with the Hornets.
Well, because he hasn't needed to. He hasn't needed to.
Well, he does now, and he hasn't done it.
But
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and to me, I would think that, you're right, Logan. He does need to start improving. He does need to start playing like that Charlotte Kemba Walker. But I think that's the reason he went to Boston in the first place. Get that help from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they have been great, and they definitely deserve those All-Star appearances. But right now, Celtics certainly struggling. They have a game against the Pacers tonight at 7:30. We'll see how the Celtics, can possibly regain some momentum before the All-Star break. Logan, that concludes our NBA news for this week. We'll talk about All-Star, get a little more in-depth into the All-Star weekend on our next episode. Right now, let's talk about Cleveland Indians, Logan, because the Indians are back, and their spring training begins this weekend. They have a month of spring training games before their opening game, which will be on April 1st in Detroit against the Tigers. So this is the first year, Logan, Indians without Francisco Lindor, who many would say has been the face of the franchise in Cleveland for such a long period of time. Indians taking on the Reds Sunday at 3:05 p.m. Monday at 3:05 p.m. same time. They'll be going up against the Royals. Overall, Logan, what are you looking for with this Indians roster? Jose Ramirez still there. Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie. It looks like he's might be a strong youngster. Oscar Mercado is still there. So, what are you looking to see with this Indians team in these spring training matches before their season begins?
I'm looking to see a lot of the young guys, like you mentioned. Some of those guys trying to come out here, play some good baseball, and try to get some hits, get some consistent guys on base. And I'm looking for some on-base percentages to go up a little bit. I want to see Jose Ramirez and how he leads the team. He didn't have, he had a good year last year, but it wasn't, a great Jose Ramirez season like we're used to.
Right.
So I'm definitely looking to see how he performs without his co-all-star in Francisco Lindor.
Where do you see the Indians finishing in terms of the MLB standings this year, Logan?
Well, there's a lot of really good teams in the MLB this year, but I see them maybe, competing for one of those wild card spots. I definitely don't see them getting ahead of Minnesota this year. Minnesota is a great team. They're stacked from top to bottom. They've got an all-around great roster. They've got all kinds of superstars on that team, but I can definitely see them getting ahead. Maybe again going to battle with the Yankees again. In a playoff spot, but I like to see another playoff appearance, but I want to see them get out of that wild card round.
Do you even with this roster, even without Francisco Lindor, do you think that they are still a playoff team?
To me, it's kind of like the NBA. You can't really say no until you see something different.
Yeah,
I understand Francisco was a huge factor in the past couple seasons, but you can't tell a team, hey, I don't believe in you now because you don't have the guy.
Right.
With LeBron in Cleveland, it was a bit different because he was the only guy. Cleveland's got Jose Ramirez. They've got Oscar Mercado. They've got a bunch of really good talent there.
Yeah. And
they've got some guys that just came in that could be superstars for this team. So I'm not going to write them off just yet. I'd like to see a few weeks in the end of the season. I think we'll get a better idea through spring training, though. Yeah,
speaking of spring training, it'll be awesome to see the Indians finally back in action. Sunday, February 28th is when it all kicks off. 3:05 p.m. Reds will be taking on the Indians for the first spring training matchup. Royals and Indians then play on Monday at 3:05. Then Tuesday at 3:10, Indians going up against the Mariners for another spring training match. As I mentioned, April 1st is the first regular season game for Cleveland. They'll be in Detroit to take on the Tigers. And Logan, with obviously NFL season is over with the Super Bowl, Tom Brady and the Bucs winning it all. But you actually were telling me about that you have some NFL rumors that you'd like to share, and I'm all ears. I actually have a friend I was talking to at lunch, and we were talking about, J.J. Watt obviously being released from the Houston Texans and what might be in store for him. But Logan, what's going on in the NFL? What can you tell us? What should we possibly be expecting?
Well, I've heard a lot of teams that have been talking to J.J. Watt, and I've heard that apparently 3 teams have narrowed it. He's narrowed it down to 3 teams.
Yeah.
He revealed that 2 of them were the Packers and the Browns, but he has not said a third one yet. I know the Packers have already reeled in his deal, they've offered him a deal around, I believe it was $15 to $16 million a year. They did not go into detail about the length of the contract, but I know that it was extension of about $15 to $16 million a season. But I was also told by a friend today that apparently J.J. Watt bought a home in Cleveland a couple weeks ago.
That's really?
Prior to his release of Houston, is what I was told.
What did he say where it is in Cleveland, like in a specific area?
No, I was just told. I don't know if that's fact. I'm just being.
Yeah.
That's what I was told by a friend today, that he bought a home in Cleveland. But either way, I think that J.J. Watt coming to Cleveland is a very, very real scenario that we could be looking forward to as Cleveland Browns fans. So be prepared to start looking out for J.J. Watt jerseys.
Yeah, if J.J. Watt does find himself on the Browns, Logan, how do you think that will improve their defense? Because obviously you have Myles Garrett, who had a great season this year for Cleveland. How will J.J. Watt help improve the Browns' defense?
I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I'm not the most popular guy in the room for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And J.J. Watt is an elite pass defender. He's one of the best edge rushers that we have in our league. But I can't really tell you that I think that he's the best move for the Browns defense. And I'll tell you why. I believe that the Browns, despite the fact that Olivier Vernon will be a free agent this upcoming offseason, and he's dealt with that Achilles injury, I don't know that the edge is what they need right now. They were second in second in rush defense last season in the NFL throughout the regular season, but they were second last in pass defense. So to me, the team only has so much cap room, right? And so many people have told me, oh, well, the Browns have this much cap room, and at the end of the day, they got to look at re-sign. They've got guys like Odell Beckham Jr. whose contracts are going to be up soon. Baker Mayfield's not going to be on his rookie contract.
Well, I've heard Logan that Browns are. It's very possible that they might be moving on from Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, I have as well, and I think that would be a great move. But as of right now, I look at it from what we know. We know that he's on that team still.
Yeah,
they have to pay. He's on that team, and
right.
Like I said, Rashard Higgins is going to be a free agent this year, and he had a great year.
Yeah.
In my eyes, I think he had a great year for a number 3, number 4 guy. So they got a lot of contracts that they got to pay, and to me, as a team in the NFL, you've got all these guys that played great last year, brought you to the AFC divisional, almost sent you to give yourselves a chance to take home the AFC crown. You got to pay your guys first. You got to pay your guys. You got to get them back home to Cleveland. Then you can start dealing and do the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But if I'm the Browns, my first move with this money that I have is I'm getting a corner. They have no man-to-man corners in the NFL on this team, minus Denzel Ward. And you look around the teams that are really, really good nowadays. You think the Seahawks, you think the Chiefs, you think the Bucks. What is the one consistent vocal point of all these teams? There's 2 positions. It's quarterback and it's receiver. All of these teams have more than 1 or 2 guys that can receive the football. Tight ends, you talk about the Chiefs. They got Kelsey and Hill. What else do you need? The Bucks. I need some pen and some paper. There are just so many guys, and I'm sorry, but a scheme is not just going to figure this out. You need guys that can execute, and the Browns, from a secondary perspective, just don't have that.
Who do you think the Browns need to be targeting? Any possible names you think they should be targeting in free agency, Logan?
Well, there's a couple guys. Well, one of my first guys that I've been looking at free agency-wise is Shaq Griffin. Shaq Griffin who past season played for Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
He's been one of the lower key names, but he had a really solid year last year. And normally, for guys from corners' perspectives, they don't get a lot of talk in the media because if no one's throwing the ball to you, you don't get. If no quarterbacks aren't throwing the ball to the good corners because they don't want to get picked off.
Right.
So you're not going to get media if you're not catching picks because no one's throwing at you. And I just think this is one of those guys that can execute the plays that needs to be done. But I've also heard that the 49ers might be shopping Richard Sherman. And
that would be
trying to bring in a guy like J.J. Watt, this would be a perfect addition. Bring in some veterans that can work with the guys that you already have. Because this Browns defense is young in that secondary. They've got Greedy Williams still back there, mind you. He was hurt last year, but he's still up and coming. I don't think we've seen his full form. I believe that a guy like Richard Sherman could be a great locker room presence, similar to the way Baker Mayfield is for that offense.
Yeah, I think Richard Sherman has certainly proved that he's an amazing vocal leader, and if he was on the Browns, that would definitely be an upgrade in my eyes. Logan, did you have any more NFL updates for us that you wanted to share?
No, that was really the main one, but, you could also talk about Russell Wilson making moves over there in Seattle. He's been... there's been a lot of talk over there, and he's started to break down the kind of teams that he would be wanting to go to. So I think there's definitely a conversation there.
How do you think? How would you assess Russell? Last question based on for NFL, Logan. For you, you brought up Russell Wilson. How would you rate his overall performance last year with the Seattle Seahawks and what they were able to do?
Well, from a individual perspective, Russell Wilson has always been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think through the first 9 weeks of the season, he was my MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 12 touchdowns through, 3 games? An absolutely ridiculous start to the season, but he just cooled off. And I think one of the other biggest issues that I have with Russell Wilson is from an offensive standpoint, he has an amazing team.
Right.
You got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You've got a pretty solid offensive line. Chris Carson, you've got some guys back there. And you can't even get out of the first wild card round.
Yeah.
That, to me, is unbelievable. But I think that any team would be lucky to have him. But I do have the 4 teams that he said that he would be willing to get traded to.
Yeah.
Those teams that he mentioned were the Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chicago Bears. Those are the 4 teams that he said he would approve a trade for.
If the Cowboys get it together and Jerry Jones gives Dak Prescott the money he deserves, I don't know if Dallas would be a good option. I'm looking at New Orleans. That could be a good spot. Now Drew Brees looks like he's most likely going to retire. I could possibly see Chicago working out because they do not have, the problem Chicago had was the quarterback inconsistency. Remember that long losing streak that they had last year, Logan? So I think Chicago could definitely work. But, Las Vegas has Derek Carr. So what are your what do you think out of those 4 options could be the best for Russell Wilson?
For Russell Wilson himself, I think the Saints are the best option. I mean, this team got all the way to the divisional round in the NFC and ended up losing in a pretty tight game. It wasn't actually a tight game, was it? No, it was. I can't remember. It was a while ago. I believe it was a tight game.
To the Bucks, yeah.
Against, our Super Bowl champion.
Right.
And you're talking about a guy like Drew Brees. That team hasn't changed anything. And Michael Thomas didn't play the entire first 10 weeks of the season. So I think Russell Wilson is probably best option for him. Is going to be the Saints, but the team that I see probably making the move here is if anybody, is the Dallas Cowboys. To me, they just have the most to give. I mean, the Saints, there's a few clear-cut guys that you'd be willing to get that you have that they'd want, and that's Kamara, Thomas, and Cameron Jordan.
Right.
Those are the list of guys that really the Seahawks could possibly want. But those are the 3 guys the Saints wouldn't be willing to trade. So to me, the Cowboys are the real only team that I can truly see this happening for. To me, I'm going to call BS on it. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I can't see the Seahawks make trading. You don't just trade, a top 3 quarterback in the NFL and the whim. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and they're winning games too. And
I don't believe it will help them win.
Right.
But I still think it was worth a conversation because even if it does happen, we're talking about tremendous differences in the upcoming NFL season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, the Seahawks have been winning games with Russell Wilson, so I definitely think that he will be staying in Seattle. Logan, that was some awesome news. Great analysis for our audience. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate your takes today. And that concludes our episode, Logan. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I really appreciate you having you being able to talk with me. I really love just talking sports with you every week. It's so much fun. I'll see you next week. We're going to have some all-star stuff for the NBA to talk about, so that should be awesome.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Logan. And ladies and gentlemen, you probably just heard the phone beep because I just got off the phone with Logan Purcell, who did a terrific job once again for us today. And that concludes our latest episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Now, this ends episode 99, so the next time you hear my voice, it's going to be the 100th episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. We've got the Cleveland Sports Show going into triple digits in terms of episode numbers. This is very amazing. I'm so happy to do this. And guess what? We're going to be talking about the NBA All-Star weekend going on in Atlanta. You're probably crying right now because you're thinking, Darius, that was such a wonderful episode you did with Logan. Why are you ending it? I need more of this. It's like candy. You just can't stop indulging on it. Well, guess what? I have some great news for you because you can access all of my work in so many different places. So let's get it started. If you're on NordoniaHills.News, just go to the Contributors tab. My name is about the second or third one down. It's Darius Sethna, spelled Sethna, Darayus, Sethna. I'm struggling to spell my own name because I'm so excited. But yes, and once you click on my name, you'll be able to see all of my podcast episodes in a list. Just click on the episode you want to listen to, and then you will have a blast. Additionally, you can see articles and some other work I've been doing. I've been doing broadcasts for the boys basketball team at Nordonia High School. That was such a wonderful moment. Special thanks to Mr. Faust again for his great halftime tribute, and Julie D'Aloiso for all the effort she put in behind the scenes for that. You can also go to my Twitter account to see all my work. My Twitter handle is at Nordonia Sports, or you can just type in my name again, spelled Darayus. Sethna. I'm so happy to say that the Cleveland Sports Show is also on Spotify, so it doesn't matter wherever you are. Make sure you type in my name on Spotify to get the Cleveland Sports Show. Just type in Darayus Sethna, and all my podcast episodes will be there for you to listen to on the go on Spotify. And finally, I'm so happy to also announce that the Cleveland Sports Show can be found on the NordoniaHills.News YouTube page. So if you find yourself on YouTube and you're craving some Cleveland sports, well, guess what? Just head on to the NordoniaHills.News YouTube page, and you'll be able to find all my episodes to the Cleveland Sports Show on there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm Darius Sethna, signing off. Really appreciate your times, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is, whatever day it is. Thank you so much for joining me this week on the Cleveland Sports Show. We'll be back with Logan next Friday, and we'll have some more Cleveland sports coverage for you. Have a wonderful weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Take care, and thank you very much.